Hi, I'm Doug Robertson, and I'm here at Q16 with Luis Perez, who's one of our featured speakers, and I'm going to ask him a couple of questions. So, Luis, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell everybody what you do.
Sure. I'm an inclusive learning evangelist, and what that means is I work in the area of universal design for learning, which is really about making learning work for all learners. And then I also work in assistive technology, and one of my passions is also photography, which I use as an educator, but it's also a hobby of mine. And so my presentations here are going to cover those three areas. They're going to cover inclusive design, they're going to cover photography, and I'm also doing a session on ebooks and how to make ebooks more accessible so that they work for all of our learners.
So what kind of photography are we talking about? Are we talking about black and white photography, film photography, digital? What do you got?
All of my photography, almost all of my photography is done with the iPhone. The reason for that, it's the best camera is the one you have with you. And so I always have the iPhone with me, but also it has a number of accessibility features that allow me to take photos where with a traditional camera, I'm not able to do that because I have reduced field of vision. So the iPhone has really allowed me to keep my passion for the arts, my passion for photography alive, but it allows me to do that to educate others on what people with disabilities can do when the right supports are in place. So photography is not something you normally think about when you think about somebody with a visual impairment, but with the technology we have available today, anybody can do it.
So, like, what specifically about the iPad, or the iPhone, rather, makes it so helpful for you?
A number of things. If I can't see the buttons, I can turn on a feature called VoiceOver, which is a screen reader, and it can describe all of the buttons to me. So even if I can't see them that well, I can still interact with the device to take photos. Also, VoiceOver has facial recognition that it supports, and so it can let you know how many people are in the frame, where they are relative to the edges, and then it can also help you determine whether it's blurry or not, and whether there's good lighting. So again, the idea is that the arts don't just belong to one group. They belong to all of us. We have the right to all be creative and express ourselves.
Absolutely. So, do you talk about how students can use this technology?
Absolutely. So that's going to be a big focus on my session because the world we live in is one where visuals really play up quite a bit. They're more attractive than just long pages of text. So the more we can do to kind of mix in other modalities, whether it be audio, video, or images, the more chances we have to grab a student's attention and get them engaged with learning. But even more importantly, getting them out there, taking their own photos, and capturing whatever the subject may be. We can weave photography into it. It could be social studies where we go in and take photos of landmarks and then write a story around them. It could be math where we take photos of different angles and then bring them into an app like Explain Everything and label some of the angles and so on. So there's lots of different curriculum connections that we can make with photography.
Just you personally, is there anything you like taking photographs of, like your passion?
For me, I'm mostly a landscape photographer, and the reason for that is I can't see movement. So the more something is steady, the easier it is for me. I have a difficult time taking photos of kids and animals. They tend to be a little bit more unpredictable.
My kids don't hold still. Every picture of my kids is blurry.
I like things like sunsets. My eyes are essentially like a camera. They have a limited number of shutter presses left, if you will. And so for me, it's about capturing as many sunsets, sunrises as I can, because those are memories that I'll get to keep with me. Even if I lose my vision completely, I'll keep those memories.
That's beautiful. So what do you do with ebooks? What is your ebook thing?
I've created a number of ebooks to help educators if they have a student who's blind or has low vision or somebody who needs extra supports of some sort. So a lot of my ebooks focus on accessibility, and I try to model the accessibility within the ebooks. So it's not that just I'm talking about it, but in the design of the books themselves, there are features that make them more accessible to all learners.
So are you talking about ebooks that you've written, or you're doing a session on ebooks too?
Both.
Both things.
So I have a number of books available on the iBook store. One actually I co-wrote with a friend of mine who has cerebral palsy, and it's called Switched On, or hands-free, because basically he uses switches mounted to either side of his head to do all his video editing and so on. And so that book is not only his experience, but also the technology that went into it to allow him to be a video editor. And then my session is going to focus on some best practices for how to make these ebooks work for everybody.
You have other books, so go ahead, tell them what your books are. I like hearing that.
Sure. So I have an actual, what do they call them, dead tree books. So I have a book through Corwin, and it's called Mobile Learning for All, Supporting Accessibility with the iPad. It's been out for a little bit, but the nice thing about the book is that I've used QR codes, and when you scan those QR codes, they link to the latest features in each case. So it's a way of combining the analog world of the dead tree book and the digital world where we can do videos, we can do multimedia, and we can keep that content alive and we can keep updating it, which is the beauty of ebooks.
Right on, thank you. So what else are you doing here? What's your third session is?
My third session is on mobile photography, and that will be on Saturday. So I just finished doing one on inclusive design where we looked at what are some features like text-to-speech, word prediction, those kinds of things that normally we associate them with people with disabilities, but really these days any learner who struggles with reading or writing can benefit from them.
So I teach 5th grade. Is there something specific that I could do to help my kids who have visual impairments?
Well, not just visual impairments, but any kind of learning difficulty. I would say just start them learning about what's built into their devices. Because the earlier we can start them advocating for themselves, when they get to college, nobody's going to chase them around and say, do you need this, do you need that? It's really up to them to advocate for themselves and say, I need this. And a lot of our students don't have those skills yet. And so the earlier we can start, elementary, middle school, kind of building those skills of like, these options are out there and they can help you. When you get to college, ask for them.
Right on, great. Do we have to go the whole time? This is not live, right? Oh, okay. We're going to keep going. Who's your favorite Avenger? No, I'm kidding. So what have you seen so far today that you've really liked?
I love the opening keynote. It really touched me very much. A lot of times we focus on everything that's wrong with education, and every once in a while it's nice to take a deep breath and kind of sit back and think about all the things that are right with education. And that's what I saw in the keynote, is that there is a lot of positive energy out there, and if we can tap into that, we can really bring about meaningful change. Don't let all the negativity, haters are going to hate, but you just have to hug them or whatever, something like that, as he said during the keynote.
I feel the same way. It's so good to hear people talk positively about what we do, because you're right, there's so much negativity and so much anger about this and that and the other thing about education. So to hear somebody tell teachers, no, this is wonderful, and you need to embrace how wonderful it is.
And that's why I'm interested in photography as well, because as I will again say during my presentation, there's a story out there about education. And the thing is, as an educator, if you don't tell your story, somebody else will. And that's what I see a lot happening, is that other people that are not educators get to sort of create the narrative. And with the cameras on our phones, on our iPads, we can document what's happening in our classrooms. That's positive. All the wonderful work that our students create, all the wonderful work that we do, and we get to create another narrative and kind of balance things out and show all the positive. So that's why I like the keynote today, and that's really what I focus on with my photography too, is highlighting the positive.
And that's one of the ways a friend of mine that works with me and I have been pushing our principal to open up, we need a class Twitter account, we need a class Instagram account. She's like, why? Because we have to be telling our own story. We have to be documenting, and we have to be selling how awesome we are to everybody else, which is what you're saying. It's what he said this morning. Absolutely.
And we need to, at the same time, rather than lock everything down, those are teachable moments. Things will go wrong from time to time. Somebody will say something that's not appropriate. But that's a great time to turn that into a teachable moment and that's going to really change the culture around media and so on, and show kids that media can be negative, but it can also be positive. It's really what you do with it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming to Q and giving me a few minutes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.